Yo, what's going on, guys? And of course, we got to talk about the New York Knicks are talking trade for Karl-Anthony Towns. Is this real? Maybe. Let's get right into it and discuss what could be going on as they're struggling right now. And allegedly, the Orlando Magic, the Charlotte Hornets, and the Memphis Grizzlies have all had discussions with the New York Knickerbockers. Almost wanted to say it correctly, but then I butchered it. Currently, they're 25 and 18. Their recent 2 and 9 slide has everybody within reason to be concerned. And hypothetically, under Mike Brown, they could stabilize this team defensively, especially by moving on from Karl-Anthony Towns. Cat, I'd like to hear your thoughts, as this team needs to be a bit more defensively versatile and have a better motor. The personnel does not work. So let's discuss, before we get into it, what do the Knicks need? I want to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. What do you guys think and why? I think the New York Knicks are an interesting squad, that they're supposed to be contenders, and that's not what they look like right now. The Knicks are a team that are elite at scoring. They're fifth in points, but they're middle of the pack in efficiency, 16th in field goal percentage, and they're defensively not the most resistant. Their biggest problem is they are lacking an interior deterrence. A guy outside of Mitchell Robinson, who is more of a solid reserve big because of durability concerns. The Knicks rank 25th in blocks. Without Cat, the team needs a primary defender who can anchor the paint. And Karl-Anthony Towns is shooting a career low 46.7% from the field. And the team needs a replacement who will prioritize good looks, high percentage shots, and facilitate the offense to improve the overall 16th rank in field goal percentage that the team currently is. And obviously, Jalen Brunson's the facilitator and orchestrator of this offense, but they need someone to do it when Jalen Brunson isn't there. And with every day there being a litany of day-to-day injuries, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Mitch Robb, OG Anunoby, the roster needs a workhorse archetype, an Iron Man to join Mikal Bridges to absorb the heavy minutes during 4-game skids. And to me, a good Karl-Anthony Towns replacement, which we'll get into the trade machine and do trades, is someone who's kind of like a mobile anchor. Under Mike Brown, he's a guy who prefers a motion offense that dictates high octane pace and is aggressive. Full court defensive pressure, and Cat's current $53.1 million contract is a mismatch due to his not really good efficiency this year and defensive limitations that he's always had. Another player would be a vertical spacer and a defensive hub instead of a defensive, kind of like the last player we're talking is kind of like a 3-and-D stretch 5. If they can find a vertical spacer and defensive hub, Mike Brown has shown he can thrive with a center who excels in DHOs. That'll allow Brunson and Bridges and OG Anunoby and everybody else to have another guy who can facilitate these dribble handoffs and also be able to create attention from the defense with screen and roll gravity, as he'll force the defenses to collapse, which opens up the lanes for their shooters like McBride, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, and company, as that is vertical spacing as the defenses collapse on the lob threat. And someone who can defend in space and switch. A big who can play at a level, on the screen, address the Knicks' struggle to stop a 4-game losing streak as well, that can play and defend high-low situations. To me, post-Cat, the trade needs someone who's going to be able to be an archetype that fits this starting 5. Jalen Brunson, the engine of the team, a 28-point-per-game scorer, 6 assists. And then you got yourself Mikal Bridges, 50% from the field, 40% from 3, the two-way guy that you need. OG Anunoby, the point-of-attack defender who can guard every single position. Josh Hart, who's the glue guy that Mike Brown loves, who's doing all the dirty work. And that center is either that vertical spacer or a 3-and-D guy, but someone who brings rim protection and is just a good high percentage finisher, either at the rim or spacing the floor. We know Deuce McBride, his 3-point shooting, his playmaking, and his defensive ability is going to have him be the sixth man. Then Mitchell Robinson, when healthy, he's a guy who is a great rim protector, but he's limited in minutes due to his injury management. Then you got Jordan Clarkson, who's just a microwave scorer that will allow you to maintain the offensive output. Landry Shamet, another floor spacer of 39%, will help keep the lanes open for Brunson and other guys in company. And Tyler Kolek, who is a secondary playmaker, and he's been forced to do a little bit more than he needs to. So bringing in somebody like Tyler Kolek or someone to help out Tyler Kolek will help reduce the burdens on the starters and young guys like Kolek. So I think when you're looking by moving Cat, the Knicks are transitioning from a top-heavy shooting team to more of a balanced defensive-minded unit. And the focus shifts from relying on Mitchell Robinson to be that defensive guy to having whoever we pull up on these trades be that guy who splits the center duties and helps improve their interior defense. And they're the third worst opponent field goal percentage in the league. So let's get right into some of what these trades could and should look like. And to me, I think the biggest thing when we look at the potential, we'll go right here, and there we go. We got ourselves the trade machine, and I just want to see if I can fix the cropping of this, just because I'm not like the biggest fan of how it looks right now. But I think that's the best we're going to get. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. But let's get right into said trades. And if you're the Knicks, obviously you're kind of hamstringed by like the salary situation that you're dealt with. But this is a team that Orlando's desperate to get shooting. And you might be able to meet multiple teams with a level of desperation that you could walk away with cap flexibility and maybe some players like Jonathan Isaac. Depending on how many minutes he plays, his contract becomes further and further unguaranteed. So he could be someone to think of. He's a little bit injury prone, and I don't know. I'd rather have Goga Batazde is what I was going to really build this deal around. The problem with a lot of like the whole thing is the Orlando Magic have to be willing to part with one of these guys, or one of these guys right here monetarily. How are you going? Because if I'm going to be quite frank, unless this is a massive trade, and we know Tyus Jones and Jet Howard are on their way out, it'd either be Wendell Carter or Batazde. Maybe you go Wendell Carter because he has the longer deal, or even if you had both of those guys. Right now, you're sending out $31 million. You'd have to have Jonathan Isaac in this deal, just that maybe get close enough for the money to work, as they still would be $6.4 million over from being able to do this deal, and you've just kind of gutted their depth. So that's the whole problem with a deal involving the Orlando Magic, and that's what I found interesting when I was reading this. I was like, well, if they're interested in this deal, you would have to include right there. I just showed you Mr. Anthony Black. This is just how many players. If you're not going to include Jalen Suggs or a Paulo Banchero or a Franz Wagner or Desmond Bane in this deal, right here, the Knicks can't do the deal, but the Magic can. And that's how many players, just staggering it, you would need. Jonathan Isaac, Wendell Carter, Goga Batazde, Anthony Black, Tyus Jones, and Jet Howard. You're not going to do that deal. Like, Tyus Jones and Jet Howard can be in that deal, and they probably want it big, but those aren't going to be all the assets that would be involved in a trade of this magnitude, just because it's not how the NBA works. And if for some reason there was a way for the Knicks just kind of like trade out their bench for their bench, I highly doubt that they would be able to do a deal like this. Like, this is like the best case. Mo Diawara, Ariel Huckporty, and Karl-Anthony Towns. It's a 3-for-5 swap or a 3-for-6 swap. Like, that's just not going to happen. It'd have to be expanded into a multi-team trade. And again, the Magic would be gutting their depth. So that makes me believe that you're probably thinking maybe you move Desmond Bane. That gives you the shooter that, to me, if I'm the Knicks, and again, in actual realm of possibilities of like showing you who could be involved in this trade, I think Goga is who you really want, or Wendell Carter. And in this deal, you're sending out 57, and the Knicks could be a team that ends up including, and they've been shopping Gershon Yabusele, so maybe Yabusele is included in this deal. What ends up happening here is, why does this deal not work out? You'd be hard capped, so you need to remove $31,000 from this trade, which means include another player. And this is more, I think, along the lines of what the deal could end up looking like if it was the Magic's, where we keep showing up in shortcomings. So they come up short, they would need to add. So Pacom couldn't be the guy, or you would need to do probably someone along the lines of a Tyler Kolek, or as we had earlier, Ariel. And I know I'm getting caught up on this Orlando Magic trade just because like it becomes so nuanced. So you guys see how difficult this Orlando Magic trade would be. I really don't think Orlando is going to be in this deal unless like they're getting him gifted to them. The Grizzlies, I think, are the sneaky team because Santi Aldama would be such a good fit for this squad. And that's where, would it be a Jaren Jackson Jr. deal? I think it could be where like they're thinking picks. I don't know if they would want Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Like you need to give up a lot. Like draft capital would have to be included in the deal that I'm just conjuring up right here by the Grizzlies, which right there they'd be sending out $46 million. And one could argue that Karl-Anthony Towns, and also they can throw in Ariel because Ariel's just not been the same since that knee injury. And over here you have yourself, I think that's really like the deal. Maybe a Brandon Clark gets thrown in there just because he has an affordable contract, but this is more realistic in my mind. You get yourself, Contavious Caldwell-Pope is in this deal, but he's a guy who can space the floor. He gives you another point of attack defender. You save some money, almost $2 million, 1.8. You get yourself Santi Aldama and Brandon Clark as your front court depth. John Conchar is just a depth guy. Gershon Yabusele and Ariel Huckbordy join Karl-Anthony Towns going to the Grizzlies. Grizzlies pair up Gigi Jackson and Karl-Anthony Towns because you need Gigi Jackson to cover up the defensive liability that Karl-Anthony Towns is, but Towns makes up the rebounding liability that Jackson is. So that works. And then John Morant can drive to the rim because you have the combination of the two. And Yabusele can play power forward there. Santi Aldama and Brandon Clark help fill out the front court gather. Either a real like shot blocker or like a pure big, but that's, I think, a possibility right there. And of course, who else was it that we said was on this? The Hornets are an interesting one. They're the last team that we have right here. And I think this could really be like a combination of like cap relief and getting yourself maybe a big. Would you try to see if like a Ryan Kalkbrenner's who you're trying to get? I just think they would value Kalkbrenner. Now, Kalkbrenner would have to be in there. And I think Pat Connaughton. To me, I wonder if right there you're sending out $36 million between those three. And I think at the very least it's Yabusele and Karl-Anthony Towns heading, which is like $58 million. And I was assuming that they were going to be short. They're going to be 12.4 short from being able to facilitate this deal, which makes me think, do you take out like a Pat Connaughton, or you take out a, I think they would want Kalkbrenner. They want a big. They would want a big. And it would have to be Colin Sexton as the other salary filler to make this work. Because you just took out 9. And there's actually a possibility they'd have to include another player. So right there, that's 55. This actually makes the deal work. You could, as I've mentioned earlier, Ariel would probably be the player that they toss in there. Or maybe it's and obviously draft capital, you guys can say what you would want or think. In this one, we're going to put Pacom because that's the trade sweetener. But you get yourself one of the best young drop coverage bigs in Ryan Kalkbrenner. You get two expiring contracts, and a really good scorer and team guy in Colin Sexton. Pat Connaughton's a guy who's won a championship. And Miles Bridges gives you a guy who can help facilitate that shot creation. Karl-Anthony Towns joins Con Knippel, Brandon Miller, and LaMelo Ball. Gershon Yabusele, Pacom. Now, there's another deal that I think a lot of people are screaming, why would they do that if they could get themselves LaMelo Ball? LaMelo Ball, who's making $37 million. And right there, that has them at 68. So we take out Sexton. I don't think this deal this deal can also go through, where it's instead LaMelo Ball, Pat Connaughton, and Ryan Kalkbrenner. LaMelo replaces the shot creator that was in Miles Bridges, and then Phil Buckholm and Gershon Yabusele and company. Karl-Anthony Towns goes there. Let me hear your guys' thoughts. I really like the Knicks. I think Orlando's just too complicated. And then outside of that, I think, man, the Grizzlies is one really interesting. They might have to move another piece to get a big from another team, and that's where we'd go into like, this could be a multi-team trade for the Grizzlies where they pull big from maybe a Daniel Gafford, which it's just because now that we're talking about this over here, we'll go Grizzlies, which the Grizzlies right there. All right, so Mavericks get Contavious Caldwell-Pope, John Conchar. The Knicks, and I think maybe having a Brandon Clark could help them. Then you have draft capital. You guys can decide what's going to happen there. But my question is, would you be able to kind of put yourself in a position to make this a multi-trade? Like, I don't even think this is like a great trade over here monetarily. They'd be over by 8, and they'd be over by 7. So, see, this is where the whole thing becomes super harder to figure out. And I also had them send them Gershon Yabusele while they would still. So this becomes a whole hodgepodge of a deal. Let me know your thoughts.